This is Gemara Baba Kama Daf Lamid Hey, and we're holding on the bottom of Lamid Dalid Amid Beis at the Mishnah. Teaches the Mishnah again, Lamid Dalid Amid Beis. We're approximately 14 lines to the bottom, learning the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, Yish Chayiv Al Maisa Shairai Upater Al Maisa Atzmai. There are times in which there's a person who's chayiv for the actions of his shar, but he's exempt from his own actions. And then the flip, pater al ma'isa shayrei v'chayiv al ma'isa atzmai. Ketzad, what's the case? Shayrei shebiyesh, if your acts embarrasses someone, pater. V'hu shebiyesh, but if the person himself embarrasses someone, then what's the din? Chayiv. Shayrei shesimai as einai. If an act blinds the eye of someone, excuse me, or he knocks out the tooth of the Eved, says the Gemara, Potter. But if he does it, then he is chayiv. Continues the Mishnah. If an act damages one's father and mother, then he is chayiv. But pater. Shayrish is like Gadish b'Shabbos chayiv. V'hulchiling is like Gadish pater. And Neshim is chayiv bin nafshoy. The reason is because he's liable for his life. And that last line, a very important line. Any time one is mischayiv bin nafshoy, then he's going to be pater from tashlumim. Why? Because of the rule that we've learned, that whenever there is a more severe punishment, then that one is off the hook, quote unquote, from mere tashlumim, because he's paying more severe. He has to pay for the actual damages. That's the Mishnah. Now, many cases of the Mishnah we did not explain, as the Gemara will explain. So says the Gemara, let's understand what's going on over here. Tana Rav Avua Kamed Rav Yechon. A rule with regard to Shabbos. Kol HaMekalkelin Peturin. Any time one is Mekalkel, any form of destructive act is pater, is exempt on Shabbos, chutz, except for michayvel umavir, except for one who's chayvel, he inflicts a wound on someone else, or umavir, he burns something. Generally, destructive actions on Shabbos are pater. However, chayvel umavir are unique destructive actions that even though they're destructive, still, one is obligated for that which he does. Rashi over here spells out, where do we know this from? Says Rashi on the first long line over here, we learned this out in Gemara and Shabbos, we learned this from the Pasuk that says that other types of chayvel is chayiv. How do we know? For the fact that the Torah says that is going to be chayiv. Kigoin, hasayriv kli, someone burns up a kli, which is an act of kilkol, but there will be an obligation for such on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Amar Lei, again, this Ravua taught this in front of Rabbi Yechon. Amar Lei, Rabbi Yechon responds, Poik, get out of here. Tana Libra, teach this outside. Why? Chayvel umavir, Einoi Mishnah. The two dinim that you just said, Chayvel umavir, one who wounds someone else, one who burns something else, destructive actions, what you're teaching me are chayiv on Shabbos. Einoi Mishnah. It's not a Mishnah, and really says Rabbi Yochanan, you're going to be pater. V'intim Saleimer Mishnah, and if you're a Vorg and tell me no, it is a Mishnah, then the only time you're going to be chayiv, says Rabbi Yochanan, is chayvel b'tzarech lekalboi. If someone does an act of damage, but in a scenario in which chayvel b'chalboi, he needs the blood. Because we know if you don't need the item that you're creating, then it's not chayiv. So says Rav Yechon, the case must be that tzarich lekalbai, he needs the dam for his animal. If you look at the last line of Rashi, Rashi says, what's Rav Yechon pointing out? It's a kilkel, but it's al minas letakein. There's an element of constructivity to it, and that's why there will be an obligation. Or a mavir, b'tzarich la'afrayim. You burn something in a scenario that one needs the ashes. Those are the only times, says Rabbi Yochanan, that there potentially could be a chiyuv on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Tinan, we learned in a Mishnah, Shoyrei shehidlik as hagadish b'Shabbos chayiv, u'shalig is hagadish b'Shabbos potter. We learned in our Mishnah, an ox is liable for lighting up a stack of grain on Shabbos, but a person is not. Vikatani, and we learned the Mishnah is teaching us who daimed is shayrei. By putting the two together means to equate the two. Ma shayrei explains the Gemara deloika ba'ilei, just like in the case of shar must be, in which he does not actually need the ashes. A shar doesn't need ashes. If a shar is burning down something, it's just an act of destruction. It's not shot that the shar of a sudden needs ashes for some reason, the pashtus is. So says the Gemara, so too, afu, so too he, the person himself, must be that he does not need the ashes as well. And yet, vikatani potter, and yet we said that one is potter. Why is one potter? Because he's chayiv misa, the person. So what do we see? Why is he chayiv misa? Because he did an act clearly that at some level that is constructive. So says the Gemara, clearly if someone burns something on Shabbos, we see is going to be chayiv the death penalty. Again, the Mishnah equated shar and chamar. So no, incorrect. The Mishnah equated the person and the shayroi. So says the Gemara, just like with the din by the shar is clearly that he doesn't need the item, so too must be the same din by the person. He doesn't need the item. And yet we're saying, why you potter by if the person does this? Because you're chayiv misa. Clearly there's a chayiv misa even when you don't need the item. Says the Gemara, Loi. 2 lines down, Lamed Hey Amud Aleph, you're not drawing a proper conclusion. Why? The opposite. Not that he is equated to the shar in the Mishnah. Shayroi is Dumya Didei, has to be equated to himself. Mahu de Kabayale, just like when he is doing it, the only time he's going to be liable is if he needs the ashes, etc. Afshar de Kabayale. The case of shar must be as well that the shar needs the ashes. Says the Gemara, how's that possible? Where do we have such a case that the shar needs the ashes? Amar le Rav Avya b'mayaskinon b'shar b'keach. Quite the wise shar she'alfla neshicha b'gavoy, that the shar had someone bit the shar in the back, and therefore the shar wants to burn the grain. Why? So it can roll around in the ashes and thereby relieve the bite that it has on its back. And how do we know that's what the shar wants to do? Because after the shar lights it on fire, it rolls around in the ashes. So says the Gemara, he, the human being, is only obligated if he has intent, if he needs the ashes. So to the shar. Says the Gemara, did this ever happen? Such a thing even possible? Says the Gemara, 10 lines down, first line is Ika Lamed Hey Amud Aleph. Yes, it. Tahu Tura, there was an ox, Tave Beira Papa, Tave Kibin Lechinche. And this ox had a tooth problem. What did the ox do? Ayala went up, upatke linizaisa, and it pushed off the cover of a barrel of beer. Vishasi shechra vitasi, and it drank beer, and it was healed. Says the Gemara, we see that an ox could have kavana, could be a pikeach, and do something in order to have a purpose to it. So too in our Mishnah, the ox did this act in order to get the ashes. Asks the Gemara, Amr Rabbanan, Kamei de Rabpapa, Mi Matzis Amrit, Shara Dumididei. You really able to say this? Vakatani, but the Mishnah said, Shara Shabiesh Bater, Vu Shabiesh Chayiv. And whereas he himself, that was Mavayesh, that embarrassed on his Chayiv, Shara Dumididei. If the case of the ox is similar to himself, Nitkavein Lebayish. What does that mean? That must mean that he had intention to embarrass someone. But where is there such a case that an ox actually has the mindset, the intelligence to go and damage someone? Says Mar, yes, the ox intended to injure someone, and that's considered similar to the person himself. The Amar Mar, niskavein lahazik. That is enough intent to obligate one to pay for busha. So says the Gemara, this is how we're going to explain the Mishnah according to Rabbi Yochanan. Again, that just like he himself had intent to do damage, and that's when he's going to be obligated for kilkul, etc. So too the shar, and we find cases, proves the Gemara of wise oxen, etc. Continues the Gemara, Rava Amar, explains Rava. Rava is smakim in the Amar, the first one line is Levayesh. Explains Rava, Masnisan, the Mishnah that we are learning is a different case, says Rava. Masnisan is Bishoigeg, says Rava. The Mishnah is referencing a case of Shoigeg, Uchede Tanya. And like we learned in a Braisa, Tvei Chizkiah, Braisa Tvei Chizkiah, the Tana Tvei Chizkiah, Make Adam, Make Behema, says in the Pasuk, if a person damages, if one damages another person, Make Adam, or Make Behema, you damage a person. Ma Maka Behema, explains the Gemara, just like when one damages an animal, there is no difference. Bein Lochlakta Ba, Bein Shagi Bein Mezin, Bein Mitkaven, Lishaina Mitkaven. There's no difference with regard to damaging an animal, whether one had intent, whether one did it on purpose, Bein Derech Yerida, whether one did it with a downward blow, whether one did it with an upper blow. To accept him, but rather in all cases the halacha is he's obligated if one damages a behema, whether kavana, whether not. Af maka adam, so darshins the Gemara, maka behema, maka adam, maka behema, so too maka adam, says the Gemara, loi tachloik, we should not differentiate by bein shagi lemezim mitkaven l'shein mitkaven, bein der chiridos, the downward blow, der chaliyos, the upper blow, l'chai by mamoin, elam lebai dry mamoin. But rather, in all cases, he will be potter. Why will he be potter? The reason being because he's chayiv misa. One is chayiv misa. So says the Gemara. In the case of our Mishnah, when one is madlik as a gadish, he lights fire to this stack. The reason why he's going to be potter, even though he did not intend for the ashes, according to this teretz of Rava, the reason is that because he is Chayim Nisa in all scenarios. Amr le Rabbanan, the Rabbanan said to Rava, Mi matzis mukmis la b'shoygeg. Can you actually explain that we're discussing a case of a shoygeg? But the Mishnah said the reason why that you are potter is because you pay in another manner. You pay by losing your life. You're Chayim Misa. Explains the Gemara. Hachi kamai. When are you needed binafshoy in the case of mezin? When when you needed the ashes, so to Hashta Shoyeg Potter. So to in the case of Shoyeg, he's going to be Potter. So that's the second way of explaining the din of Rav Yochanan. And from there we move on to another Mishnah on the bottom of Lamed Hey Amud Aleph teaches the Mishnah Shar She'arai Devachar Shar Acher. We have two oxen chasing after each other, V'huzak, and what happens? And now there is a damage. Meaning, what do you mean V'huzak? Means that the ox in front, A is chasing B, and ox B is found to have damages. So owner of B says, Shar Chayizik, I saw your ox chasing my ox. Now my ox I see is damaged. It must be it was your shar. The Zalimer and the owner of the other ox says, no, likey, Ella Bisela Lakam. Your ox bumped into a rack and got damaged. But it has nothing to do with me, says the Mishnah, very important and perhaps the most fundamental idea in all of monetary cases is Ha'amaiti mechaveroi olav harayim. 2 lines from the bottom, anytime one wants to be mitzi from his friend, one wants to extract, take out, demand money from his friend, olav harayah. So your animal got damaged, I feel bad. But if you want to extract money from the other guy, olav lahavi raya, you are the one that has to bring the proof. Continues the Mishnah. Excuse me. Now we have A and B animal chasing C. And again, so now it's different. It's not that the ox that got damaged is making a claim. Here, A and B were chasing C. So the owner of A says it was your B animal that did it. The owner of B turns back and says, no, it was your A animal that did it. What's the halacha? As we turn over to Lamed Hey Amud Beis, says the Gemara, Shnehem Peturin, they are both potter. Continues the Mishnah, but let's say both oxen belong to one person. One guy owns 2 oxen, A and B. So now, what's the halacha? And the same type of scenario that the ox was chasing after. The ox was chasing after the other one. But now they both belong to one person. Says the Mishnah, Shneim Chayavim, Vayishneim Shalosh Echad, then both of them are Chayiv. Continues the Mishnah. One ox was big, one ox was small, and again we remind yourself, who cares the size of the ox? Because let's remember, when you pay for a shar tam, with the shar the first 3 times it damages, what does it pay? It pays Chatzi Nezek. Where does it pay Chatzi Nezek from? From Migufai, from the item itself, from the animal itself. So there's going to be a massive difference if the item that damaged, if the shar that damaged is a large ox or a small ox. If it's a large ox, then there's more to collect from. If it's a small ox, then there's not as much to collect from. So Yechad Gadol V'Echad Katan, Hanizik Omer Gadol Hazik. The one that got damaged says it was the larger one that damaged my animal. And the mazik says, Loiki, again, he has both animals, but he says, Loiki al-katan izik. It's true that I damaged you, but it was my smaller animal. So I owe you chatzi nezek, but only from my smaller animal. If, or let's say there were 2 animals that were pursuing a third. One of those animals is a tam, one of those animals is a muad. Hanizik Omer, again, the one who got damaged claims muad hezik. Though your muad animal damaged again, so if you have to be nezik shalim. V'amazik Omer loiki, no, it's not true. Ela tam hizik was the tam animal as v'chati nezik amos mechvera olav arayo. Says Mishnah again, you gotta bring a proof. And finally, concludes the Mishnah. What happens? If the damaged ox was to Echad Gadol Echad Katan, now we flip the case. It's not that I have two oxen pursuing your ox. We don't know which ox did the damage. Now we don't know which ox. The damaged party has a larger and a smaller ox. And the guy who damaged has also two oxen. So we have A and B and C and D. So what happens? And is the government that got damaged says Gadol is like Gadol, but Katan is like Katan. The one who got damaged claims it was the large one damaged the large one, the small, and again you remind yourself, and therefore the chati nezik that's going to be paid will be for the large, more damage payment possible, and small for the small. The one who did the damage, he says likey. Alakatan is a gadol. So you're not able to collect so much. The gadol is a gadol. So again, you won't be able to collect so much. Or if one of them was a tam, one of them muad, and again, and is a gaimer. Muad is the gizar gadol, but time is the gizar gadol. So again, the muad pays that thing shalem. So Nizik wants to say that one damaged my larger animal, I get to collect more. The time only damaged my smaller animal, I collect less. Mazik Omer like no. The time is a gadol. Umur is a katan. Ha'amaiti mechaveroi olav haraya. Says the Mishnah in this case as well. Ha'amaiti mechaveroi olav haraya, the one who's trying to collect, upon he is the burden of proof to prove exactly what happened. And we begin the Gemara Amar Amar Rav Chia Barabba Zaysei Meres. What do we learn out from the Mishnah? Chalukin olav chaveroi val sumchis. From the Mishnah, we can see that Chaverov, the Rabbanon, argue on Sumchis that Ta'amar Mamoin Ha'amutel B'Safek Cholkin. Sumchis is of the opinion that says Mamoin Ha'amutel B'Safek. Let's see Rashi. Rashi on the Gemara says Sumchis says L'kamana Daf Menvav. Brayso b'Gemara Shorsha Nagach Sabara. Mama in Amuta b'Saveh Chol can you divide? Omi Mas Nisan Shamina Russell and Rashi. We see from our Mishnah that the Rabbanan must disagree with Sumchis because the Mishnah did not say Yachloiku. You split it. Mishnah says that Olav Haraya. So says the Gemara, our Mishnah is clearly disagreeing with the Shita of Sumchis. Omar le Rav Abba bar Mamul Rav Chia bar Abba Rav Abba bar Mamul as Rav Chia bar Abba. Omar Sumchis afilu bari. When Sumchis said his din, that Maman Amuta b'Safek Cholkin, says the Gemara, did Sumchis only say this din by a bari when they're both clear claims of a bari, Oidilma or Amarle, excuse me. So Rav Chia responds in Amar Sumchis afilu bari. Even when both claims are a bari, still Sumchis holds Maman Amuta b'Safek Cholkin Dikatani. Oh, excuse me, Mimai. And from where do we know some? Mimai Demasi said bari. How do we know that in the Mishnah is bari? Maybe the case of the Mishnah is that the guy says maybe it was the gadol damage, the gadol, the kata, and the more, the gadol, etc., etc. Says the Gemara, you know where we know from? The Katani Zamar Sharcha Izik V'zeh Omer Loiki. Loiki is a claim of a vadai that he knows what's going on over here. So says the Gemara, we just explained that the Mishnah is discussing a case of a bari that there's certainty in their claims. The first case is bari, then the next case must be bari as well. Ema seifa, what do the seifa say? Oh yeah, chad gadol v'echad katan. Nizik amar gadol hizik, umazik amar loiki ela katan hizik. Echad tam v'echad muad nizik aimer. Muad hizik, umazik amar loiki ela tam hizik. Amotzim echavero olav haraya. Says the Mishnah, amotzim echavero olav ma'isi raya. What the clear implication is that if you don't bring a proof, shakil, then what's the halacha? Shakil kedamar mazik. You claim you take that which the mazik says, because if you're the nizik is being moitzi, you need a proof. You don't have the proof, you go with the mazik. Says the Gemara, if that's true, Neima David Yufta de Rabbi Bar Nelson. Why? The Amar Rabbi Bar Nelson taught Potter that it's going to be Potter, and because we don't want to say to Kasha Rabbi Nelson, Elo Bari B'Shema, rather in order to make Rabbi Bar Nelson's din stay alive, that he said you're going to be Potter and our Mishnah said you're going to be Chayiv, we're going to differentiate, and we're going to say that Bari B'Shema, that what the Mishnah is referring to is the case where it's a Bari and Shema, that it's not about Dayis. So ask the Gemara, this is not like Rav Chia Bar Abba just explains. Answers the Gemara over 5 lines from the wide lines. The Ka'amar Bari man, the Ka'amar Shema man. Who is the one that says Bari, and who is the one that says Shema? Name of the Kamar Nizik Bari, the one that got damaged is certain. Kamar Mazik Shema, and the Mazun that damage is unsure. Akati Lema Tavitiyovta the Rabbi Bar Nelson. If that's true, then we still have a kasha on Rabbi Bar Nelson. Why do we still have a kasha on Rabbi Bar Nelson? Because if the Nizik is a Vadai, then going back to the case of Tana Chitav Adul Sairin, then the Taina is a Vadai as well. And our Mishnah says that you would collect, that therefore, not like Rabbi Bar Nelson. Answers the Gemara, Ela de Kamar, rather we're going to have to explain Nizik Shema. The Kamar Mazik Bari. Omid Seifa Nizik Shema Mazik Bari Rejanami, first white line. Nizik Shema Mazik Bari, Vamar Sukhzavilu Baha. And on Subcha says, even this stand is a Chashmi Inan Delay. And therefore the Mishnah has to say, no, not like Subchas, but rather Amotzachavero, all of Araya. So says the Gemara, there's no other way to explain the Mishnah. Answers Rapapa Loy, and with this we conclude. Seifa Nizik Shema Umazik Bari. Reish Nizik Bari Umazik Shema. Volodami Reish LaSeifa. But the two are not equal. Amri, we can explain Bari V'Shema. Shamu Bari Chan Milsehi. Bari Ubari, Shamu Bari, Trey Mili Ninu. And therefore, since the end of the Mishnah is discussing a case of a Shamu Bari, there's no way to explain the first part of the Mishnah as a Bari Ubari, and rather we have to say the way that we explained it, and we'll pick it up from the Gufa, in which we're going to delve a bit deeper into the sheet of Rabbi Rav Nosson, V'siyata Dishmaya.